If you've ever been foolish enough to respond when I invite you to join me in an exciting new business opportunity, you'll know that I'm a master of trickery. So it's time to use some of these skills for the power of good and trick your brain into learning the major scale, okay? So we're gonna do something that's really, really easy today. It's gonna kind of sound like this. And it's really gonna just kind of involve going back and forth across one string. I think a lot of the part of guitar that is very confusing to people is thinking of scales across the strings and kind of like going down a string but going up in pitch or backward and stuff. I think one of the great advantages of learning on a piano is you see everything linearly, and we can do the same thing on a guitar. It's just a little bit different, right? So I'm going to play this fingerstyle today, and a lot of this is going to kind of tie into the fingerstyle class I did with my friend, which is going to be on sale for the next 5 days. He is an actual classically trained professor in classical music, and is super valuable and very inexpensive if you ever have any ambitions to fingerstyle guitar. Right now I'm focusing on the A and the D strings, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to play the D major scale across the D string, and then add the open A string to every single note in it, so it'll sound a little bit more musical and a little bit less like a scale, and we're just gonna be training your ear and your brain to think of a scale but actually make music, okay? So now the major scale is just a group of notes that sound good together, all right? We can actually spell the major scale with intervals. An interval is just a space between two notes, right? So if we have the D major scale, it's gonna sound like this. Open, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Okay? Now, you can play any open notes, any open strings, major scale using that. That would be the A major scale, but again, we're gonna focus on D, okay? And like I said, with the piano, the notes just go left to right, lowest to highest. You can think of a single string on a guitar as doing the same thing, right? So if we just go open, 2, 4, 5, we can spell that in whole steps and half steps. Whole step is 2 frets, half step is 1 fret, right? So from open to 2, from D to E, we have a whole step. From 2 to 4, we have another whole step. From 4 to 5, we have a half step. Let's start with just those notes, right? Open, 2, 4, 5. Now it already sounds like a scale, so we're not tricking your brain into doing anything. But once we kind of add that low A string, A is actually going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, the 5th note in the key of D. So we're gonna get a cool vibe with that A. It's gonna be droning over every single one of these notes, and it's gonna sound less like just key of D major scale, right? So the way I'm doing this, I've got my thumb on the low A string, and my pointer finger is kind of picking up into the D string. So instead of going open, 2, 4, 5, I'm gonna get both of them together. Okay? And then I'm gonna kind of focus and try to like listen to what I'm playing actually, right? Just by adding that open A string, it sounds less like a scale. It still does, you know what I mean? But it does sound a little bit more musical to me, at least, right? So open, 2, 4, 5. The great thing about the spelling of the major scale and intervals, like I said, whole, half is what we have so far. The rest of it's really easy. Whole, half. So we have consecutive whole steps right here, starting at the 5th fret. 5 to 7, 7 to 9, 9 to 11, and then 11 to 12. Just like that, right? So we have open, whole, half, whole, half. So the way that I want you to trick your brain into learning all this stuff is to just kind of go back and forth and listen to the ascension or the descension through a scale, and eventually it just sounds more like music instead of just playing like a hand shape. So much of the beauty of guitar is that we can replicate all these scales using hand shapes, but the downside, like I said, is you kind of get trapped in these shapes and you think of scales maybe in a less musical way and more of in a pattern recognition way, which is kind of like the upside and the downside simultaneously to guitar, right? So the nice thing about doing this is we have these 3 odd numbered inlays that we can kind of always focus on, right? So boom, 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 right there. However you want to play them, you can use one finger and slide through them. You can hammer on like that. I've got my pointer finger hammering to my ring finger. So you can kind of add some of the cool things about guitar, like the hammer-ons and the slides, that we don't have available in piano learning, but still utilize the linear fashion in which they're built, right? So we can just go through it, open, hammer onto the D string, like that right there. So I've got a hammer on to the second note, a slide to the next one, another whole step, and then maybe my middle finger is hammering on to that half step. Then I can start again. Hammer, slide, slide. Okay? Now, to make it even more musical, something in like how a song might work, we just kind of want to skip around. So like I said, maybe I want to really target on just the dots on my guitar, the inlays, right? Odd numbered frets that are going to be in that scale. Maybe I want to kind of take this and then maybe kind of jump. And I think that sounds kind of musical, and really you're just kind of playing through a scale over and over again. Now the great thing is this is movable, right? So we do the same thing on the E and the A string. Like I said, if we're playing in the key of A, same intervallic formula, which is a vocabulary word that will impress your friends. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And then we add the low E string. And it kind of sounds a little bit more musical right there, right? So the other thing that we could do to maybe add a little bit more of a fingerstyle feel to it, if you go back to the original example, we can maybe add that open A string in between, right? So we can go open A string, then the open D string, then 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. Right? And right there that sounds, I don't know, it sounds more musical than being like, I feel like it's not even a comparison as far as the musicality of practicing scales in those two different ways, right? So again, I think this is kind of like a fun thing that you can use, the stuff that makes guitar really interesting. You're really training your brain to hear the differences in kind of like working through scales and how it's actually valuable, and less just kind of like repetitive memory stuff that works for some people, doesn't work as well for other people. You know what I mean? So definitely try it out, experiment. Even maybe switch something up. If you want to like have a different kind of vibe, you can just maybe switch one interval. Instead of going open, 2, 4, 5, let's do something else where we take open, 2, 4, 5. Let's change this note to this note right here, just kind of make it crunchy, right? So instead of just open, 2, 4, 5, 7, I've got open, 2, 4, 5, 6. Right? There's a great example of how you can just kind of subtly manipulate one thing in the major scale to get a totally different feel, right? So again, all this stuff I think really kind of builds on itself. So once you understand the importance of thinking of scales in a linear fashion, along with using a lot of like the cool guitar-based shapes to kind of supplement what you're talking about, I think it really helps you kind of just grab like a complete understanding of the fretboard. So again, make sure to click that link below to check out the masterclass on the fingerstyle stuff, because once you kind of get your fingers just ready for some of that madness, I think you're really gonna enjoy it. So if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.